Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I received a call from my mother in law yesterday and she told me she needed my help. When I asked her what's troubling her, she told me that she wants to surprise father in law on his 50th birthday and has planned everything in advance. She said that most of the things like finding a good restaurant and taking care of the bookings were done, but there was a minor problem. As we all know, that father-in-law is an absolute die-hard fan of Johnny Cash, and my mother-in-law wanted to give him an original vinyl album of the singer as his birthday gift. When I asked her what's troubling her, she told me that she wants to surprise father-in-law on his 50th birthday and has planned everything in advance. She said that most of the things like finding a good restaurant and taking care of the bookings were done, but there was a major problem. As we all know, that father-in-law is an absolute die-hard fan of Johnny Cash, and my mother-in-law wanted to give him an original vinyl album of the singer as his birthday gift. Unfortunately, the person who was selling the record is refusing to mail it and is asking to do the trade in person. My mother-in-law said that an in-person trade is something that she'd prefer too, but she can't drive for about an hour because of her back injury, and asked me if I can help her out. Of course, I told her I'd help her out. So on Sunday, I went down to the address my mother-in-law gave me, and I was in a really good mood that day. I'm a sucker of hopeless romantics, and the idea of mother-in-law planning such a sweet surprise was nothing short of perfection. Especially because she told me this whole errand was top secret, and I felt like a Cupid going on a secret mission of my own. That was until I reached the place mother-in-law mentioned and saw my brother-in-law there. The small bistro that my mother-in-law mentioned was nowhere like what she described. Instead of a busy retro-style cafe, I saw a fancy place with a bar station and round tables. One of the tables was fancily decorated, and while I was busy checking whether or not I got the address right, I saw brother-in-law in a corner sitting with my husband. As soon as I saw him, I knew my mother-in-law had lied to me. Why did she do that? I had no clue, but she did, and I wasn't in the mood to listen to any shit that'll come out of my brother-in-law's mouth. So I turned to walk away when my husband came running over and told me to hear him out. I asked him why in the world he was sitting with that man, and why would I ever listen to that jerk? My husband tried to distract me by saying I should take a look at the date he planned for us. He told me that brother-in-law rented the whole cafe and arranged a candlelit dinner with live music because he was sorry for his behavior and wanted to apologize. But I took one look at my brother-in-law's face, who was busy acting cute like he just did something amazing for me, and I knew nothing about this whole situation was genuine. Actually, about 6 months ago on my birthday, we threw a big celebratory dinner for our families. It was my first birthday as a married woman, and I wanted my parents and my sister to be a part of my happiness. Because my family was coming, we also invited my in laws. Because my birthday was a day before Thanksgiving, we decided to celebrate Thanksgiving early and cooked the whole dinner along with turkey at home. Both our families came over early, and Mom and mother-in-law helped my husband with the dinner while I entertained everyone else. But my sister was tired, and she excused herself to go and take a quick nap before dinner. When my husband informed me it'll be another hour or more until the food is ready, I opened the third bottle of wine and refilled everyone's glasses. Of course, it was a bad idea to drink on an almost empty stomach, and later I faced the consequences of my actions. When I went upstairs to wake my sister up because the dinner was ready, I found brother-in-law trying to get all handsy with my sister while she continuously said no and tried to push him away. He was obviously drunk, and when I pushed him away, he loudly said we have no sense of adventure. I was about to drag his ass out of my house and call my husband when my sister told me she doesn't want to create a scene in front of our parents on my birthday. I wanted to argue with her about her decision, but at that moment my priority was making sure not to do anything that would make things even more uncomfortable for her. So I let brother-in-law go downstairs and even have dinner with us that day. But in no way was he going to get a pass. And that very night, after everyone had left, I told my husband what had happened. He was taken aback by the situation and told me that he'll talk to his brother and make sure that he sincerely apologizes for what he did. That weekend, brother-in-law came over after my husband called him, and they talked about it while I was there. My husband told him that what he did on my birthday with my sister was inexcusable, and even if brother-in-law was drunk a little, he should have walked away the first time my sister said no. But all he said in response was that he was sorry for what he did, and if he had known we're that uptight about something that's not such a big deal, he would have kept his distance. That's when I kicked him out and made it clear to my husband that from that day on, that man isn't allowed in my house. And if my husband is going to support him, he can go out too. But my husband assured me that he agrees with my decision of going no contact with brother-in-law. We both thought he was an absolute embarrassment for the male species, and people like him deserve the worst. So I couldn't understand for what reason my husband would allow that shitty a-hole to even try and apologize now. Like it's been months. And what is it that he stands to gain by coming back in our life? I told my husband that even if he wants to say sorry, it's a little too late for that. There's no way that kind of man is coming back in my life for anywhere within 10 miles of me or my family. But my husband again asked me to give him a chance because he's his brother and what he did was under the influence. That's what made me see red. Under no circumstances is it right for anyone to use being drunk as an excuse for their shitty behavior, and my husband did just that. He practically said, "Excuse him, he's a drunk baby." So I told my husband that if he wants to associate with someone like brother-in-law, I don't want to see him either, and there's no need for him to come back home because I didn't have any space for either of them. But my husband did come home, and because I couldn't really lock him out of the house, I had to be content with locking him out of our bedroom. And since then, I'm also giving him a cold shoulder. Does that make me an a-hole? Am I overreacting? I called my mother-in-law today because now that I'm past processing the shock of finding my husband actually speaking on behalf of his brother and trying to convince me to forgive him, I was finally able to spare a thought for my mother-in-law, who must have been in on the whole thing. So I called her to demand an explanation for why she set me up like that. As far as our relationship was concerned, we were on great terms, and I refused to believe she knew about what brother-in-law did and still supported him and my husband. And thank God I tried to ask her instead of making assumptions in my head and being mad at her too. She told me that she had no idea about brother-in-law's involvement. She said that she was asked by my husband to make an excuse and send me to that cafe because he wanted to surprise me with a date. So she did exactly that. When she was done explaining herself, she asked me why am I reacting strongly to my brother-in-law being there, and I finally told her about the events of my birthday evening. After hearing about it, she was silent for so long that I thought I lost the network. When she finally said something, she told me that she is ashamed of her son's behavior and told me that I don't owe anyone forgiveness and she'd support me in whatever I decide to do. Y'all don't know how I ended up getting such a sweet mother-in-law, but I'm really grateful because hearing those words really made half of my stress disappear. So, it's been a week since I told you about what happened in my original post, and I'm amazed to see that almost half of you think I'm an a-hole for taking out my anger on my husband. I don't know what kind of world you're living in, but if my husband is going to ask me to forgive a possible abuser, then there's no way I'm going to bend the knee and agree with him. Also, we're still not talking. I did stop giving him the cold shoulder after talking to my mother-in-law, but when we sat down to discuss what we're feeling, he said that he feels like I owe him an apology. I controlled my temper there and asked him what exactly I owe him an apology for, because depending on his answer, I might not find a reason to scream my head off. But he said that as his partner, I should have at least given his brother a chance and acknowledged his genuine actions to make it up to me. That was the last straw for me. I told him how I don't owe my time to someone who forces themselves on girls, and excuses it off as being drunk. And if he wants to support such behavior, then I don't think I can be with a man like him. And the most crucial point of it all was that I'm not the one brother-in-law should apologize to. He wronged my sister, and he didn't feel any remorse for his actions. In fact, he called us boring because we weren't a good sport in his game. That, in my dictionary, is the definition of an a-hole, and I can't associate with them. And after that, I told him to think about what he's saying because from that moment onward, our whole marriage depended on his mindset. I don't know whether I should laugh or cry. My husband and I started having problems because of brother-in-law, and somehow those problems seeped into our own relationship dynamic. The things that I found endearing about him now just irritate me, and the same thing is happening to him. He did say that he at least wanted to try to make our marriage work, but I just couldn't let go of the fact that he was supporting his brother. Finally, after 2 months of trying to exist in this marriage, we decided it's best to separate. Some things are beyond repair, and our marriage is one of those things. I'm sad about how things turned out, but I am kind of relieved too that I saw what kind of a man he was very early on. Next month, we would have celebrated our first wedding anniversary, but unfortunately now it's just a reminder of a disaster. NTA, not the a-hole, because the brother-in-law is a major jerk. And if your husband can't see it, then there's something wrong with your husband as well. YTA, the brother-in-law is definitely an a-hole and deserves to serve time for what he did, but you are punishing your husband for something that's not his fault, and that makes you an a-hole. My son, mid-30s, is moving in for the second time with his previous girlfriend. They had a baby together previously who is now a preschooler. She also has a teenage son and a toddler, became pregnant while they lived together, by another man. We lived in a house I paid for. She screwed me on the rent expenses every month. Stuck me with babysitting both my grandson and her son, sometimes for days while she was running around. Didn't cook, clean, do laundry, or pay much attention to the children. I stuck it out till the lease was up, and then bought a home for myself. Son moved also, as this was the time her new pregnancy was revealed. Her son was treated as much like family as possible. Flew him to our other home for vacations, Christmas and birthday celebrations, school clothes, activities, etc. He or his mother showed no gratitude for any of this. His behavior to us and our other grandchildren was uncomfortable. Lots of teasing, bullying to our grandkids. We made excuses that he needed help because his mom was such a bad parent. To be honest, we were all quite relieved by their breakup because we disliked the girlfriend and were tired of trying to make it work with her son. Forward 2 years later, and I find that our son and her are moving in together again. We told our son that we don't want back on that merry-go-round again and only want contact with our grandson. Our son tried to drop her son off last weekend with his son, and I advised him that was not acceptable. Son says they are a package deal, and I need to take her son back as a family member. AITA? NTA, but it sort of sounds like everyone else is. You're not even responsible to look after your own grandson. That's the job of the parents. It doesn't seem like they appreciate the help they are getting and are intent on taking advantage of your unconditional love and support. Help out with whatever you are comfortable with, but don't feel bad that you can't help out more with your son's girlfriend and her own kids. You're not responsible for someone else's poor decisions, and you can't be mom and grandma to every poor soul out there. NTA for establishing boundaries. But IMHO, you are not putting too much blame on the girlfriend and not enough on your son. You were generous to the girlfriend and her children, but why the heck wasn't your son paying her expenses while they were living together in your house? If your son loves this woman and the children in spite of all she's done, you might want to find a way to tolerate and be kind. Doesn't mean you have to babysit or fly them all over or fund the lifestyle of any of them, including your son. There's a similar situation in my family, and it sucks. NTA, he's right. He can insist on a package deal. Question to you. Would you rather not see any of them or see all of them? At least that's the choice he's giving you. My perspective? He will not be able to stick to that requirement. He will need childcare for your grandson, probably a lot. I have doubts the relationship will last this time unless they fix the problem from last time. Also, what if you'd been attached to her children and then she stripped them away? Now she wants to bring them back like nothing happened? I, 27, male, have a son, Riley, 5, male, with my soon to be ex wife, Maria, 29. Maria and I are getting a divorce for a few reasons. One reason being that she cheated on me twice. Second being that she was abusive and neglectful to Riley while I was at work. The first time I caught her cheating, I forgave her for the sake of our son. The second time is when I found out about the abuse, so I decided to divorce her and sue for full custody. However, there's a pretty massive chance Riley isn't mine biologically. When Maria and I separated, she admitted to me that she was cheating on me with 2 men when Riley was conceived, and she only stayed with me because she didn't believe in abortions and she knew I'd step up. I don't care about who Riley's biological father is because I've been his dad for the past 5 years and everything I've achieved is because of him. I'm pretty successful now, but when Riley was conceived, I was a total loser. I sorted myself out and committed to my goals to be a good dad for him. So there's no way in hell I'm giving him up. However, I've been told to get a paternity test just to be sure, and so I can obtain an accurate medical history for him. So that's what I'm doing. We've sent the test off and now we're waiting. Naturally, I've been extremely anxious about the results. I'm finding myself comparing photos of myself and my family members as children with Riley, and my anxiety has manifested itself in impulse spending, mainly on my son. I've remodeled his bedroom, bought him a new bike, and a few other things. I got the bike delivered to my parents' house because I was at work, and when I went to pick it up, my mom asked me to stay for dinner, so I did. My dad was opening up the bike's box with Riley in the other room, and my brother-in-law, who was over with my sister and their kids, asked who had bought it. I said it was me, and he said, "I don't know why you're spending so much on this kid that might not even be yours." Riley barely speaks English. His mother is Latina, and he was speech delayed. So he didn't understand, but everyone else was shocked. I immediately told him to shut the hell up, but he kept going. He said I should have sent Riley to live with his mom's parents until I got the results back, and started saying shit like Riley didn't even look like me. He said, and I quote, "That bitch," his mother, "cheated on you twice, and she had you raising her brat that wasn't yours. You're a loser, man." His biological father abandoned him when he was a kid. So I replied, "Your biological father didn't even stay to raise you. You're the last person who should be talking about this." That triggered a massive argument, and brother-in-law and my sister ended up leaving. My sister called me a massive a-hole, and she's demanding that I apologize to her husband because apparently he's sensitive about his dad. My mom says I was right to bring it up because he was out of line, but my dad says I should have been the bigger person. AITA? NTA, this dude sounds awful. I understand your son wasn't aware of what was being said, but it still boggles the mind that brother-in-law not only said this, but said it in front of your boy. NTA, who cares if he's sensitive towards his dad? His dad left him and he's saying you should abandon your son. That is toxic. Be there for your son, whether he is yours biologically or not. He's still your son because of your bond and relationship. People adopt all the time. If he's not yours, maybe consider adoption. Although I think some places allow that, if the husband signed the birth papers, then the child is technically his, no matter who donated the sperm. So you should apologize because brother-in-law is sensitive about his dad. But your sister doesn't think you are sensitive about your son, perhaps not being biologically yours. Your sister is fine with her husband calling you names and calling a child who was present names, but you are the wrong one for putting him in his place. I'd ask your sister those questions, then block her and surround yourself only with those who support you. You are going through a lot. And tell your parents you can't be around sister and brother in law for a while because you have enough to deal with. NTA. And also, you are very cool for knowing what it actually means to be a father.